Thank you. Mr. Waltz is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to introduce into the record a letter to myself from the Superintendent of West Point, Lieutenant General Williams, that was sent to me in response to my letter regarding the teaching of critical race theory at West Point.
Is there objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Secretary, I found that very interesting, your exchange with Mr. Gates on no teachings of critical race theory in the United States military. I want to quote to you a letter I received from the Superintendent of West Point. It says, with regards to critical race theory, there is one course that has this theory as part of the syllabus. There are 2 lessons on critical race theory. There is a book on critical race theory titled Critical Race Theory and Introduction. On and on and on about the teaching of critical race theory in West Point. I just want to emphasize something. This isn't something that we're raising. This came to me from cadets, from families, from soldiers, with their alarm and their concern at how divisive this type of teaching is that is rooted in Marxism, that classifies people along class lines, an entire race of people as oppressor and oppressed. I cannot think of anything more divisive and more destructive to unit morale. I want to be very clear. The military needs to be open to all Americans. Absolutely. That is the strength of the United States military. But once we're in, we bleed green and our skin color is camouflage. We're worried about that American flag on our shoulder. That's the only thing our enemies are worried about. I think we can agree there. But the other thing that they raised to me was a seminar that over 100 cadets attended titled Understanding Whiteness and White Rage, taught by a woman who described the Republican Party platform as a platform of white supremacy. This is going on at West Point as we speak to our future military leaders. And sir, I would encourage you, I would demand that you get to the bottom of what is going on in the force, and further, for what it means for civilian oversight of the military when our future military leaders are being taught that the Constitution and the fundamental civilian institutions of this country are endemically racist, misogynist, and colonialist, and therefore it is their duty to resist them. What does that mean for a future cadet who one day will be sitting where you are? And so do you agree that, will you work with us do you agree that critical race theory should or should not be taught in our military academies?
As I said earlier, thanks, Congressman, for the question, and thanks for your continued support. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
This is not something that that United States military is embracing and pushing and causing people to subscribe to. Now, whether or not this was some sort of critical examination of different theories, I don't know. But
we need to understand our past. I want to be very clear. But can you agree at least that understanding whiteness and white rage presented in Ike Hall over 100 cadets probably is something that we shouldn't be teaching our future leaders of the United States Army?
As you have described it, it certainly sounds like that's something that should not occur. Again, I would like to know the specifics of the.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Just switching topics to shipyards and our infrastructure. Our shipyards are old, they're small, they can't handle the fleet of today, much less the fleet of tomorrow. We currently have 4 public and less than 20 commercial. The Chinese are approaching 1,000 shipyards. 1 dry dock that can handle the Ford class, not enough for the Virginia class. The Navy has its $21 billion investment plan, but it's over 20 years. Over the next 2 decades, would you welcome additional funding as part of our shipyard modernization? I think it's absolutely critical.
I agree that it's critical, and you know, we not only have to have the right mix of capabilities, we have to be able to sustain and maintain as well. And in this budget, you'll see that we've invested some $830 million in recapitalizing.
I think that is woefully. Chinese are at 1,000. We're at less than 20. And what I'm so disturbed by is we're debating a $1.9 trillion infrastructure plan. The Navy has its shipyard infrastructure improvement plan, so they clearly define shipyards as infrastructure. No mention, not one. Were you consulted by the interagency group that submitted the infrastructure plan to whether it is grids, ports, and especially shipyards. Was the Defense Department consulted for its priorities as part of the administration's plan?
Well, certainly I support the administration's plan, and
That will have to be taken for the record. The gentleman's time has expired. Ms. Houlihan is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. I know my time is very precious, but I would like to yield some of my time to General Milley because I know that he had some comments that he wanted to make when Representative Gates was talking, as well as Mr. Waltz, about a similar subject of the stand down and race theory. Would you like a minute or so to comment on that? Do you remember what your line of questioning or thought was there?
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand, and I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
Thank you, General. Changing the subject right now to our people.